Madison, grab your suitcase. Mom didn't even look at me when she said it. Her tone was clipped, rehearsed, like she'd been waiting all morning to say those words. I blinked from the hallway, still half awake, clutching my coffee mug. What? She pointed toward the narrow staircase. Your sister's bringing her husband to stay in your room. You'll sleep in the garage from now on. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation. Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. The sound of her voice was so casual, it almost didn't sound cruel, but it was. It sliced through the quiet house like glass. Dad folded his newspaper and gave me that disappointed stare I'd known my whole life. You're 24, Madison. You don't pay rent. You don't contribute. We're not running a charity. Alyssa walked in at that exact moment, hair perfect, perfume expensive, holding her husband's hand like a trophy. Oh, don't make a scene, Maddie, she said, flashing that fake sweet smile. It's just for a few days. You can handle that, right? I stared at her, the golden child, the one who always got the bigger slice of everything. Attention, love, even air. Sure, I said, my voice steady. A few days. Mom crossed her arms. Good. There's a blanket in the closet. Try not to make a mess down there. Alyssa's husband laughed softly under his breath, like it was funny. Something inside me shifted. My heart was pounding, but not from sadness anymore. It was something else, a pulse of quiet defiance. I turned, walked to my room, and started packing. My clothes. My laptop. The one photograph I still cared about, me and Grandpa on the day he told me, don't let small people make you smaller. When I came back out with my suitcase, Mom didn't even look up. Alyssa just smirked. Dad muttered, maybe sleeping in the garage will teach you some discipline. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't say a word. I walked to the garage, shut the door behind me, and stood in the dark, staring at the dusty floor. The smell of oil and cold metal filled my nose. For a second, I felt the weight of humiliation press against my chest, but then, quietly, a small smile crept up my lips. They thought they'd broken me, but this was the last night they'd ever have that power. Because in less than 24 hours, when they looked out that front window, they'd finally see who I really was. The first thing I heard the next morning was the rumble of engines outside. Not one, but several. I sat up from the thin mattress on the cold garage floor, blinking against the sunlight that spilled through the small, dirty window. My phone buzzed on the workbench beside me, a notification lighting up the cracked screen. Carl pick you up at 9 a.m. sharp. Mr. Carter asked that you bring your identification and sign on documents. A grin crept across my face. They had no idea what was coming. I brushed off the dust from my jeans, tied my hair into a loose ponytail, and slipped on my navy coat, the same one my mom once mocked for looking too formal for someone unemployed. I zipped my suitcase, took a breath, and opened the garage door. The morning air hit me, crisp and cold. Across the street, sunlight gleamed on the tall glass tower overlooking our neighborhood. The one my father used to say was for people who actually made something of themselves. I was about to. The house behind me came alive with noise, laughter, clinking dishes, Alyssa's exaggerated giggle. They were having breakfast. I could hear Mom fussing. Ryan likes his eggs over easy. Don't burn them this time. I stood there for a moment, suitcase in hand, staring at the familiar walls that had never really felt like home. Then I turned toward the street as a sleek, black SUV glided up the driveway and stopped right in front of our porch. The vehicle was massive, tinted windows, polished chrome, engine purring like a promise. The Brooks family had never seen anything like it parked in front of their house. The driver stepped out tall, neatly dressed, tablet in hand. "Miss Madison Brooks?" he asked. I nodded calmly. "That's me." The front door creaked open behind me. Alyssa stood there in her silk robe, her husband peeking over her shoulder, both blinking like they were seeing a ghost. "Wait, Madison," she said slowly. "What's going on?" "Who's that?" The driver smiled politely. "Good morning, ma'am. Mr. Carter sent me to escort Miss Brooks to her new residence. She'll be staying in the Carter penthouse effective today." Alyssa blinked, confused. "Carter? As in the Carter Tower?" "Yes," he replied smoothly. "She's our new executive partner. Mr. Carter asked me to convey his congratulations." Mom appeared next, drying her hands with a kitchen towel. "What's all this noise?" "Who?" She froze the moment she saw the SUV and the man in the suit. "Morning, Mom," I said softly. "Sorry if the car's a little loud. I tried not to disturb breakfast." Dad's chair scraped from inside. A moment later, he stepped onto the porch, half-dressed, eyes narrowing at the sight. "What the hell is this, Madison?" The driver turned toward me. "Your luggage, Miss Brooks." I handed him the suitcase. "Thank you." Alyssa stepped down a few stairs, disbelief twisting her face. "You can't be serious. You're moving into the Carter penthouse? That's impossible. People wait years to get a contract with him." I met her eyes and smiled. People wait years to get noticed. I stopped waiting. The driver opened the SUV door, but I turned back one last time. My parents stood there, speechless. Alyssa's husband looked like he'd just swallowed a nail. Mom finally found her voice. "Madison, how? When?" "You were sleeping in our garage." I tilted my head. "Yeah, humbling experience. Helps you think clearer." Dad stammered. You're working with Carter Holdings?" "Partnering," I corrected softly. "My startup was acquired last week. Mr. Carter said he liked my ideas. Apparently, all those nights you thought I was wasting my time. I wasn't." Alyssa laughed weakly. "You? A partner? Come on. What could you possibly have created that Carter would want?" I leaned closer, my voice calm but sharp enough to sting. "You'll read about it soon enough. It's already in the business journal." The driver held the door open. I stepped inside the SUV, glancing out the tinted window as the car eased down the driveway. Mom's face was pale. Dad's arms hung limp. Alyssa just stood frozen on the porch, her perfect hair swaying in the morning wind. As the SUV rolled away, the street looked smaller, quieter, almost unreal. Inside, the driver handed me a folder. "Mr. Carter said to give you this. It's the ownership transfer documents. You're officially the majority shareholder of the penthouse unit, titles already in your name." For a moment, I couldn't speak. My chest tightened. I had worked so hard for this. Sleepless nights, failed pitches, rejections that cut deeper than I'd ever admit. And now, sitting in the back of a luxury SUV, I realized I'd done it. Alone. But this wasn't about revenge. Not really. It was about proving that their version of success wasn't the only one. As we pulled up to the tower entrance, a valet rushed forward. The glass doors opened automatically, revealing marble floors that glowed like sunlight trapped in stone. The driver bowed slightly. "Welcome home, Miss Brooks." I stepped out, heels clicking against the pavement. The doorman nodded respectfully. From across the street, I could still see my family standing at the window, small figures, stunned into silence. Alyssa's husband said something, but she didn't move. I didn't wave. I didn't gloat. I simply adjusted my coat and walked inside. Because the best kind of revenge isn't loud. It's quiet, confident, undeniable. The kind that doesn't require words, just the sound of an elevator door closing while they're still standing outside wondering how you got there. And as the elevator door slid shut, I saw my faint reflection, tired eyes, but steady. A woman who'd been underestimated one too many times. Garage girl, huh? I whispered to myself with a faint smirk. Not anymore. By the time I stepped into my new penthouse, sunlight had turned golden. The floor-to-ceiling windows washed the space in warmth, reflecting off polished marble and brushed steel. For a moment, I just stood there, taking it in. The quiet hum of the city below felt like applause after years of silence. But this wasn't luck. It was the result of nights spent coding on a broken laptop in coffee shops that closed too early, pitching investors who laughed before I even finished speaking, and hearing my own family say the same line again and again. You're wasting your time, Madison. I wasn't wasting time. I was building something they couldn't even imagine. On the kitchen island, a note from Mr. Carter waited for me. Welcome aboard, partner. The board wants to meet you formally tomorrow night. Dinner at 8 o'clock. Dress sharp. I ran my fingers over the thick paper, my heart pounding. Tomorrow. The same neighborhood. The same people who'd dismissed me. But this time, I'd be the one hosting. The next evening arrived faster than I expected. The catering team was already setting the long glass table, the soft hum of conversation echoing through the penthouse. My assistant, a calm woman named Grace, handed me the guest list. My eyes froze when I saw the names. Mr. and Mrs. Brooks, invited as special guests. I hadn't added them. Mr. Carter had. He knew. Grace smiled faintly. He said your story deserves a full circle moment. I swallowed. Yeah, it does. At precisely 8 o'clock, the elevator chimed. My parents stepped out first, dressed in their best clothes, faces tight with confusion. Alyssa followed, clinging to her husband's arm, pretending confidence she didn't have. The look on their faces when they saw me standing beside Mr. Carter was priceless. He greeted them warmly. Mr. and Mrs. Brooks, welcome. You raised quite the daughter. Dad blinked, speechless. You know her? Of course. Carter chuckled. She's one of the brightest minds I've met in years. Madison's idea for urban housing sustainability cut our project costs by 20%. I made her a partner last week. Mom's jaw dropped. Alyssa's painted smile cracked. I stepped forward, calm, collected. Hi, Mom. Dad. Alyssa. Enjoying the view. Alyssa scoffed, trying to recover. You really expect us to believe you built all this? Carter looked at her sharply. Believe it. She earned every inch of this place. The dinner began, and I sat at the head of the table, my family positioned awkwardly to my right, surrounded by investors, journalists, and board members. Every toast, every compliment, every mention of Madison's success chipped away at the arrogance they'd carried their entire lives. I caught Dad staring at the chandelier, eyes glassy, lost in thought. Maybe for the first time, he saw how wrong he'd been. Mom leaned closer halfway through dinner, her voice trembling. Why didn't you tell us, sweetheart? I smiled politely. You never asked. Her lips parted. We just wanted what was best for you. What was best for me? I said quietly. Wasn't sleeping in your garage. The room fell silent. Even Carter paused his wine mid-sip. But I didn't stop. My words flowed like I'd been waiting years to say them. You told me I'd never make it without your help. You made me believe I was a burden. But I learned something in that garage. I don't need anyone's permission to build my life. Alyssa shifted uncomfortably. Come on, Maddie. Don't make this dramatic. We were just what? I interrupted. Teaching me a lesson? You mocked me because I didn't have a rich husband or a job title you could brag about at dinner parties. But the thing is, I looked directly at her. The man you married works for the company that just got acquired by mine. Her face drained of color. You're lying. Carter raised his glass. Actually, she's not. The paperwork went through this morning. Welcome to being one of our subsidiaries. The investors laughed softly, clinking glasses. Alyssa couldn't even look up. I leaned back, calm and composed, while my father finally spoke, voice low. I suppose I owe you an apology. I looked at him, the man who'd once told me I'd never survive without being someone's assistant. No, I said softly. You don't owe me words. Just remember this moment next time you call someone a failure. Carter stood, raising his glass again. To Madison Brooks, the woman who proved that success doesn't need approval, only persistence. Everyone stood and toasted. The sound echoed through the penthouse like thunder. My mother's eyes welled with tears. She whispered, "We didn't know you had this in you." I met her gaze, steady and kind, but with a strength she'd never seen before. You never tried to look. Alyssa sat in silence, her fork untouched, her husband staring at his plate. When dinner ended, my family lingered awkwardly by the elevator. Dad cleared his throat. We'll be heading home. I smiled faintly. The garage should still be empty. Mom flinched, guilt written all over her face. Madison, please. I stepped forward and hugged her briefly. It's okay, Mom. I don't hate you, but I've outgrown the version of me that needed your approval. As the elevator doors closed behind them, I exhaled, slow and steady. Grace walked up beside me. That was something. Yeah, I said, looking out the window toward the quiet street below, the same one that used to lead to my parents' house. It's strange. You dream for years about proving people wrong. Then one day you do, and all you feel is peace. She smiled softly. And what now? I turned back to the city lights. Now I build something even bigger, but not to prove a point. To make a difference. Outside, down the block, I saw my father's car pull away slowly. For the first time, I didn't feel invisible. I felt free. 3 weeks passed. The press had already started calling me the woman who rose from the garage to the penthouse. Every morning felt different, not because of the luxury, but because of the quiet. No shouting, no judgment, no one telling me what I couldn't do. But peace doesn't last forever. That Sunday morning, Grace knocked on my office door. Madison, there's someone here to see you. I looked up from my laptop. Who? She hesitated. Your parents. And your sister. For a second, I just stared at her, the words not fully sinking in. Then I exhaled slowly. Send them up. Mom entered first, clutching her purse like it could save her. Dad followed, quieter than I'd ever seen him. Alyssa trailed behind, makeup perfect but eyes swollen, like someone who hadn't slept. Madison, Mom said softly, her voice trembling. We didn't know where else to go. I leaned back in my chair. Why? What happened? Dad swallowed hard. Ryan got fired last week. His firm shut down after the acquisition. We didn't know it was your company. Ah, there it was. I didn't speak. I just let the silence hang between us, heavy and suffocating. Alyssa finally broke. I'm sorry, okay? For everything. I shouldn't have treated you like that. I was jealous. You made it out, I didn't. Her voice cracked, tears smudging the mascara she'd probably hoped would mask her shame. Mom added quickly, "We're not asking for much, sweetheart. Just a small place to stay until we figure things out. You know how your father's pride is." I looked at my father, the same man who once told me I'd never make it without him, now standing in my office, hat metaphorically in hand. "Funny," I said quietly. "You once told me that sleeping in the garage would teach me discipline. Maybe this will teach you humility." Dad's eyes fell to the floor. "You're right. I deserve that." For a long moment I said nothing. My heart should have felt triumphant, but it didn't. Watching them like that, I realized revenge wasn't satisfaction. Growth was. I stood up slowly. "You can stay in one of the corporate apartments downstairs. Temporarily. Grace will arrange everything." Mom's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Madison. I don't know what we did to deserve your kindness." I smiled faintly. "You didn't, but I'm not like you." Alyssa wiped her eyes. "I wish I'd believed in you sooner." I nodded. Belief isn't something you give people. It's something they earn for themselves. "You'll find yours." As they turned to leave, Dad paused at the door. "I'm proud of you," he whispered. "Truly proud." The words hit me harder than I expected. I didn't say anything, just nodded quietly. After they left, I walked to the window. Down below, the same cul-de-sac glimmered in the afternoon sun. My family had once made me feel small there. Now they were walking out of my building, humbled, changed. Grace appeared beside me. "You did the right thing." "Maybe," I said softly. But it wasn't about being right. It was about finally being free. I looked out across the skyline, at everything I'd built, every mistake, every night that felt impossible, and whispered, almost to myself, "They sent me to the garage, but that's where I learned how to build an empire." The elevator doors closed behind me as I walked back to my desk, the city glowing beyond the glass, quiet, golden alive. And for the first time in my life, I didn't just feel successful. I felt home.